Russia to continue humanitarian supplies of grain fertilizer to Africa. So Russia will continue supplying humanitarian aid to Africa. They will give them grains, fertilizer, and other stuff. So before we even get to this story, I always have a problem with all this humanitarian aid because from experience and from history, we've realized that humanitarian aid does not solve the problem the people are facing. Now, it might fit them for a couple of days, but it doesn't solve the problem long term because people collect this humanitarian aid, especially of these grains, and then they just kind of like do not pay so much attention into making sure that next year they don't go begging for it anymore. It's like you give a beggar fish or you give a person fish. He's gonna eat the fish and ask for more. But if you teach a person how to fish, then that person can fish for himself. That is just what I think. Because if humanitarian aid were to be the solution to Africa's problem, then I'm sure that problem would have been solved by now. But from the look of things, we can see that those problems haven't gone anywhere. The problems are just still there, looking at us. So this goes to tell you that humanitarian aid is not the solution to Africa's problem. So let's continue with this article. Russia will continue to provide humanitarian supplies of grain and fertilizer to Africa. Deputy Prime Minister Victoria was quoted by local media as saying on Friday, Russia remains a global breadbasket and a reliable supplier. The first batches of humanitarian aid in terms of grain and fertilizer have already been sent to Africa countries, and they will continue in the future. Abramchenko said in an interview with Russia's state media agency, RIA Novosti. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization recently admitted that sanctions imposed by Western countries on food, mineral fertilizer, logistics, and payments have worsened the problem of world hunger, said the Russian Deputy Prime Minister, adding that this trend would only increase in the world. At the Russian African Summit in July last year, Russian President Vladimir Putin said Russia would send grain as humanitarian aid to 6 African countries on the World Food Program list. Yeah, Russia is doing their best to feed countries in Africa that are suffering from food shortages. But how come Africa is having a food crisis? How come? You guys understand that we have one of the best soil in the whole world, right? We have one of the best environment favorable for agriculture, right? So how come Africa can't feed itself? How come the people in Africa can't feed themselves? This is the question we, the Africans, must ask ourselves. Have we really did our own part in making sure that Africa or African children do not starve? Are our leaders really working hard day in, day out to ensure that Africa does not become a beggar or the African people do not become beggars? Remember, I have said this before and I will say it again. Remember, he who feeds you owns you. Let me say this one more time so that you guys can hear me very clearly. Remember, he who feeds you owns you. But let's continue to our next story for the day. Zambia limits worship time to 2 hours to curb cholera. There's an outbreak of cholera in Zambia, and the leaders there are trying their best to reduce the spread. So they have decided to cut down on worship hours so people do not mix together a lot. People do not stay together for long hours in crowded spaces, and that might help to reduce the rate of infection of this outbreak. Churches across Zambia have received a mandate to restrict worship sessions to a maximum of 2 hours. The directive, issued by a high ranking official overseeing religious affairs, also prohibits the sale of perishable and ready to eat food in church premises. To further minimize the risks of the disease transmission, worshippers are strongly advised to refrain from handshakes and hugs. In an official statement, Mr. Motelo emphasized the importance of maintaining hygiene within worship centers. The churches are now required to provide safe drinking water, designated hand washing points, and make available alcohol-based hand sanitizer to their congregants. The urgency of these measures is underscored by the significant cholera outbreak in Zambia, with more than 7,800 reported cases since last October. Over the past 24 hours alone, the Health Ministry has recorded over 400 new cases and 18 fatalities. The latest intervention aims to mitigate the impact of the cholera epidemic, emphasizes the collective responsibility of religious institutions in safeguarding public health. Yeah, I think that is a very important note people must be mindful of, and people must understand that public health is always number one, and the people must always learn to follow it. We hope that the people in Zambia can ride these troubling times, and with help and support from their government, they can get back to their normal lives. So, those were the stories we were able to cover for today. To you guys out there, let us know what you think about the headlines and which of them resonated with you. And please don't forget to like this video, share this video, follow our Facebook page, and most importantly, subscribe to this channel, because that helps us a lot and we shall forever be grateful to you. So thank you very much for doing just that. And like always, see you in the next one.